moment when you were like, I gotta get out of this and I need to go do something else? Or a spark of inspiration that made you want to go to a different career? Or was it more like you were a frog in boiling water and one day you woke up and realized you needed a massive change?
I had my moment when my boss told me about 6 months before a job was going to open that I should definitely be considered for it. And so I started doing probably about 10 more tasks on top of my initial job. So I'm staying until like 10 o'clock at night. And then the position was opened and they gave it to somebody else. And I said, I'm done. And I went back to school the next, like I was telling you earlier, I just walked into BMCC, Burr Manhattan Community College, and I was like, I'm just gonna register for classes. And I started the next week, and that's kind of how I got here.
And what about you two?
So I was doing cancer research, and you get fairly close with the patients. I was on clinical trials, and after a couple of my patients passed away, then I was just like, time to look at a different direction right now.
That sounds really depressing.
Yeah, I think for me, when I got out of college, I went and did personal training. And I went to a seminar and I saw this guy who was teaching marketing. And I was like, he's not doing any training and he's making more money than all the trainers in the room. And so I was like, this does not make sense. So I'm like, are you training? He says no. And I look at his lifestyle. He's with his kids. He's going on vacation. He's teaching other people how to do marketing. And I realized that was what I really wanted to do. And I started just hanging around him, just working at his events for free, all these different things like that. Just kind of stalking him a little bit and making sure that I learned how to go and do that, because that was more the lifestyle. And plus, it's really hard to market yourself a personal trainer when you don't look the part. So
what kind of obstacles were you coming up against and facing as you're going through these changes? Was it more of a personal obstacle of you having to change your perception of yourself? Or were you coming up against more external obstacles of changing other people's perception of yourself and maybe lacking skills or needing to learn new skills? Tell us about that emotional process.
I think there's a lot of both. One is, just kind of quitting a job, period. It's
that's hard.
And not having any real work experience doing what it is that you want to do. That's you need a little bit of a confidence boost. And then outside of that, you're trying to convince other people that you're good at this, and you don't really have anything to back it up. And so you really have to start doing the job before you actually start doing it. So if you're looking at marketing, you have to figure out how to market yourself, which is sort of the self-exploration of how can I make other people believe what I believe. So that's...
Do you guys have similar experiences?
Yeah, when you said external, I think it was all external for me. I think when my family's talking about, I sent you to school for 4 years, you're supposed to go to school for this specific topic, and then you start saying, well, I want to be an entrepreneur. And they're like, they have no idea what that's like coming from a Caribbean background. They don't understand that. They understand 9 to 5, and when they offer you overtime, you take it. So to just say that and say, hey, I'm going to quit my job, the first thing my mom tells me is, what about the benefits? Like, when you get sick, what's going to happen? I'm like, well, I haven't been sick in 10 years. She's like, well, tomorrow you're going to get sick. So that kind of thing of the external and just listening to yourself, which is very hard when everybody else is talking.
When they all have opinions about what you should be doing.
Exactly. The same way you said it, with the same attitude.
I remember when I quit my job at Goldman, my dad sent me an email saying that he was really disappointed in me. And it was so hard at the time. But now he's very proud of me. What about you? I know that your parents really wanted you to be a doctor, and were they surprised?
My mom was very supportive. She's like, just do whatever makes you happy, which at the end of the day is really the truth. And but my biggest obstacle was the fact that I had zero training or background. I didn't take a single marketing class, single design class. I didn't know how to Photoshop, and a majority of my job is Photoshop now. So, but it's just that fact that just showing people that you're able to do it without anything on your resume that kind of resonates with that.
How did you do that? How did you learn those new skills and then show them to other people?
Well, during my time that I was unemployed, I tried to learn as much as possible.
Is this before or after you joined BuzzFeed?
Before BuzzFeed.
So between the time in LA and coming back to New York
Yes.
for BuzzFeed?
I try to get as many skills as possible. I learned how to code briefly for my own website. I went to meetup events. I did informational interviews with friends and colleagues that had connections to different industries. So I just try to bolster my resume through that.
When you initially went out to LA to work with Comedian and you had to start doing these social media campaigns,
Yes.
What about what about that? Like, did you have any experience in that at the time?
Well, you know, I'm a millennial, so I grew up on social media. So like, you understand it by actually doing it.
Yeah.
And like I was well versed on a lot of the platforms, and I can pick up on patterns just from like my science background. So all social media, you look at trends, you see what's popular, what people are actually doing on Vine, Instagram, and Facebook, the kind of copy that they provide, the visuals and whatnot. So I tried applying that to the comedian and his brand, and try to establish him as that kind of entity.
So it sounds like a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
That's a really great segue into transferable skills when you brought up your background in chemistry and how that transferred to learning about the patterns on social media. Did either of you two find similar transferable skills between your past careers and your new ones?
Oh, definitely. Even now, looking back at like my first full-time job, which is customer service, my job is to communicate, and my job now is to communicate. It's to basically convey this message to people and have them understand it. And so on your resume, customer service may not seem like it's relatable, but at the end of the day, your job is to communicate.
Solve problems.
And solve problems. And that's what I was doing all day. A lot of copywriters, they had jobs like bartenders, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is just convey a message. And so bartenders, all they do all day is they talk to people. And so those skills kind of transfer into what it is that you want to do, which is you want to be able to communicate with as many people as possible. To do that, you have to have conversations with people on a consistent basis. And then the other job that I had that kind of transferred was I was doing media sales. And at the end of the day, media sales is the end of the road for any sort of creative output. And so everything that I saw coming across my desk sort of transferred into what I do now, because I was at the end of it. So now that I'm at the beginning, I'm thinking about how is this going to play out if it's on TV? How is it going to play out if it's on print? How is it going to play out if it's online? And that kind of like all of those little things kind of work together now. So even though I don't like look back and say what was I doing then, that would work now. They all kind of like prepare you for that moment where you need it.
And I think selling is important. So when I was doing personal training, that you learn the good and the bad of doing that, and learning how to sell yourself is something you'll have to do in a job interview when you are going to go and change careers. And so you got to also know when you're selling yourself to have a really good understanding of the other person. So yes, I didn't look the part as a personal trainer, but I did understand that you were in the gym for a reason. And so figuring that out, I was able to go and distract them, I guess, from what I look like and really focus on what it is that they were doing. And I realized that now, transferring that over, whether I'm going to go do a speech at a school or whether I want to go and pick up the client who was on Dr. Oz that wants to do marketing, I'm able to go and figure out learning how the power of questions are. And I would have never learned that if I wasn't a personal trainer.
Right.
Yeah, there's also this thing where, like I was saying earlier, when you decide that you want to do something, you just kind of should do it. So like when I was switching careers, I knew that I was going to take this crazy pay cut. And so like I was saying, I started doing real estate on the side, which is selling, it's marketing, it's talking to people, it's communicating, something to people. So it's, if you're going to go out and I still do it now. So it's like every weekend I go out and I may sell $1 million house. The same skill that I'm using to talk to those people and say, this is why you need to buy this house, this is why you need to buy this condo. It's basically what I do every day. It's just two different forms. Daily, I'm doing it written, and then on the weekends, I do it verbally. And so if you want to do it, you just need to kind of do it, because you're going to get better as you practice. And if you're just saying, I want to do something, and it's like, all right, I'm just going to keep updating my resume instead of doing it, then you're not really doing it. You're kind of stagnant, because you're not doing it. So practice makes perfect. So if you want to do it, if you're going to be a a sports marketing
Yeah.
person, you start marketing yourself, and that's going to be your portfolio. That's going to be your resume.
Yeah.
That was a whole Nike ad. Just do it.
I get high on my own supply.
What have any of you done during periods of unemployment or during transition to help build your skills or to help you further grow your network, prove yourself, or get closer to your end goal?
So I went to this informational meetup. It was a free event, and one of the speakers actually happened to be Jonathan Perlman of BuzzFeed, and he's actually the VP of BuzzFeed Motion Pictures. And as he was talking, he talked about the pillars of BuzzFeed, and I was taking notes, and lo and behold, when I got my interview at BuzzFeed, one of the questions was, what were the pillars of BuzzFeed? So just by me merely going out to this event kind of helped me in my interview process, where I showed I was able to retain information and actually pay attention to what someone was talking about and understand what the company culture.
You also clearly did your homework.
I've actually never been unemployed, ever. Just kind of growing up with my father's Nigerian, my mother's Jamaican, that was just like, you don't quit a job unless you have another one. Yeah, like just kind of going out and talking to people. Like I networked for 3 years before I got my first copywriting opportunity. And there's this point, and I've been trying to tell it to people a lot lately, where you kind of want to stop networking for opportunities and just network to meet people. Everybody that I've ever approached, I'm like, hey, here's my card. Nothing's ever happened. It's the people that I became friends with. I just literally sent an email one day to somebody. I was like, look, I know this opportunity is open. Can you help me out? And she sent my resume to the hiring manager, and that's how I got the job. And so, yeah, pretty much I try to tell people, like, if you want to do it, like, the best thing you do is you just go out and talk to people. You go into a bar, and you're sitting there by yourself, just look to your left, you start a conversation. It may go somewhere, it may not go somewhere. At the end of the day, you just, like, everybody's supposed to just communicate. Like, that's the whole idea of living. And so if you just go out and you be open, something's going to happen. You may not end up doing what you want to do because it's not what you should be doing, and you may end up doing something else that you like better just because you had a conversation with somebody and they opened your eyes up to something completely different.
Yeah, I think. Oh, so she had a question.
What bar is that?
I feel like you go to any bar in New York City, like it's kind of why people come here. It's a melting pot. You never know who's sitting next to you. Like doing real estate, that really opened my eyes. Where it's like somebody walks in and they're like, I have all cash, and they're younger than you. You want to know what they're doing to have $1 million+ in the bank to be able to afford something all cash, and it's just a matter of talking to people, figuring out what it is, where your common ties are, because we're all humans. So when you uncover that, things just kind of open up.
What about you, Gio? Were there any periods of unemployment for you
Yeah, I
or
had-
transition?
Yeah, I had 9 months of no work, and I think one of the things that helped was really hanging around someone who was working. It's almost like, you don't want to be the bum on the couch. And not that I was still living with my parents, so I wasn't the bum on the couch, but you want to be that tell to someone who's heading somewhere. So a lot of times when people are unemployed, you hang out with other unemployed people, and you're wondering why I'm unemployed. So I think really hanging around someone who was doing what I wanted to do, and then asking questions, because I think that experience that I got to go and see what they go through is something that you'll never experience. You're not going to get that in a book, but when I saw it, I understood it, firsthand.
Yeah, one thing that I found to be helpful when I was moving from finance into tech was asking people, like, what kind of things are you reading? Who do you follow on Twitter? Who should I be paying attention to? Who should I grab coffee with?
Right.
And just like understanding the kind of things that they're thinking about day to day helped me shift my perspective.
Absolutely.
How were you staying motivated during that period of time?
Hopefully you got good friends. I had friends where, I was just so depressed on going through so many different things, and I had one friend who just saw more in me than I saw in myself. And he would not stop. Like, just saying, listen, you need to go. I'm very religious, so I would say, like, hey, I'm praying for an opportunity. He's like, well, you do understand that God helps those who helps themselves. So I sat down and I'm like, listen, this little spiel you do of waking up, eating, cereal, playing video games, repeat tomorrow again was not working. And so just having somebody there, and sometimes you don't have that person. And you know, outside motivation doesn't really last. It's the internal one. So you gotta find it, like, have some self-pride to say, listen, this cannot be my story. But sometimes it requires a friend to see that in you. So you want to be very careful. You don't need a lot of friends, but you need one that tells you, you know, when you say the sky is red, they're like, I believe you. Like, you know, and so I think sometimes that was really what it was. Like, if it was not for that guy, and I work with him right now, we do marketing together, and if it wasn't for him, I honestly don't think I would have gotten off my bed.
Just to even piggyback off of that, you need that person, and you need the other person who just doesn't have time for your bullshit. And that's the person who's just going to be like, look, stop complaining.
Yeah.
And find answers. And like, during my networking period, I found that person, and she was just like, dude, I'm not here for your bullshit. I don't want to hear you complaining. You're talented. You know you're talented. I know you're talented. Stop complaining and do something about it. And so you want to have like the devil and the angel on your shoulder, somebody who's going to sugarcoat it, and that could be your mama. And then you want to have that other person who's just going to kind of motivate you with just raw truths to go out and do something.
I'm not gonna beat it over the head. That's pretty much the same thing. I had a good support system, good friends, and they led me to opportunities, made me meet people. So
when you were switching roles, this is a question for all of you. I'm sure you came up points of time during interviews or networking conversations when there was periods of doubts, when the other person you're speaking with kind of implied that like maybe you were not well qualified for this position, or they didn't really quite understand your story. What were the questions they asked you, and how did you go about answering them? I think this is going to be something that would be valuable for many people in the audience as to what to prepare for.
One, I think most of the people in this room have probably had some work experience, and that's why it's a career change. That experience of working kind of prepares you for somebody saying no. And the questions that they would ask is like, why would I hire you? You know, at the end of the day, employment is an investment. And so I'm paying you money to make me more money. I need to know that you can fulfill what I'm, you know, asking you to do. Mm-hmm. There really is no good answer for it unless you're already doing it. So if you're saying that you're a copywriter, then what are you writing? Are you writing on social media? Are you writing on Facebook? Are you writing a blog?
That's
if you're a designer, like, what are you designing? Are you designing stuff for yourself? Because that's what they're going to ask you. There's a cultural thread that's going through, I guess, the whole employment spectrum right now, which is passion. And so everybody wants you to have passion for what you're doing. And if you have passion, you're doing it even when you're not told to do it.
Right.
So it's like, if you're a designer all the time. I should go into your house and I should see something that you've designed. Your house should have some sort of aesthetic to it, and you should be able to explain it.
Do you think that applies to all fields? Do you think that's also a relevant answer for both of you?
I think that just the story, that's it. For someone, that's a character that you have to have. Mm-hmm. So yes, I may not know when you put the job description all these responsibilities, but a person who's passionate will find the answer. So it's the same way he didn't know how to go and use Photoshop, but he knew that, listen, I really want to do this. And that's something that's not something you can teach, but that's something that's inside of you. And I think as they ask, well, why should I go and hire you, or what do you bring to the table? I think the big thing is that you sometimes, like you said, like you got to show it. Right. Like what you bring to the table is, and when you go into a room, so I even joke around about like a stalker who's trying to get somebody. When you go into watch, I love Law and Order. So when I watch Law and Order and I'm seeing they go to a stalker's house, you see like a shrine of all the things that the person he's been stalking. So the same way when you talk about passion, if you're saying I love fashion, and I go to your house and when I go to your Instagram and you're not following nothing with fashion, you're lying. You know, so it's like almost like we all have a reality TV show, and if I'm watching your TV show, I should know what it is that you're wanting to do.
What about, like, Chris, imagine if you were trying to do the reverse change, where instead of going from science and research to BuzzFeed, you're doing the reverse. Mm-hmm. Science is something that's, like, much more difficult to just transfer into. How would you have approached that process?
Well, the thing is, you have to kind of immerse yourself in the whole world. So, like, you're competing against kids that was their main drive from the beginning of college. So understanding that you gotta devote the amount of time and respect the craft to where you're gonna say, I'm gonna study, be in the library, I need to do well on my MCATs, I need to actually transition into this medical field by actually devoting the time to it. Like, you might have all the cognitive abilities towards it, but the actual matter of the fact is you haven't devoted as much time as someone that's been doing it from day one.
With that in mind, and that we only have time for one more question, what's like the one piece of major advice you'd give to someone who's looking to change their career?
What would Beyonce do?
Sorry.
What would Beyonce do? I feel like it's you always want to look at it and look at somebody who's at the top of their game and look at their work ethic and try to mimic that, which is, everybody wants to be the best at what they're doing. If she's the best, it could be Beyonce, it could be LeBron James. You pick somebody and you sort of try to mimic the work ethic, which is nonstop, all day,
It's about work ethic.
Right.
Okay.
I think the belief system is important. So if you think your mindset has to be changed, because if you just go and take in all the other stuff, but you're like, I look at Beyonce and I'm saying, well, I can never be like that, or I can never have that kind of work ethic. If that's your belief system, you're never going to go and model her work ethic. So I think the mindset has to change and say, like, what a person who's wanting to be a certain thing, what do they think about? Do they look at the opportunity as less? They don't look at no the same way. Rejection is just another opportunity to go and to find that correct thing that you're looking for. So I think that would be the big thing, is if you could just change your mindset from it's not possible to why not me. I think that would be a big change.
I would say two major things. One, know yourself, whether it's like you're trying to just do R&D on yourself to where you experiment to see if this actually interests you. Don't make a career change just to make a career change, see what kind of interests you and then kind of go down that path. And secondly, look at every interaction, every connection that you have in life as, you never know, they might come back into your life later on.
Networking.
So,
Yeah.
I never thought I was going to work for a stand-up comedian, but after doing that one show with him in college, it just manifested into what it became.